we're going to move on and finally address and talk about the results of the 2024 summer movie draft that we did all the way back in May. This is the second time that we've done this, and now the summer is officially over. It's officially wrapped up. All the movies that we've drafted have come out. And if you listen to that episode, you know that we picked 10 films each, or if you did not listen to that episode, that's something that we typically like to do at the top of the summer. We both draft films. We basically draft films that we think are going to be received the best upon release. And particularly, we are using Letterboxd to attribute that measurement. So we're not using Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic. We're using a platform that we're actually active on. And ultimately, the rules of the summer movie draft is, again, we pick 10 films each. And basically, after we select those 10 films, they'll all come out over the summer movie season. And if you've ever been on Letterboxd, or if you haven't been on Letterboxd, basically the site ranks movies with 5 stars, with each half star making it a 10-point scale. And all films on Letterboxd have a weighted average score, and that ranges from 0.5 to 5. And basically, now at the end of the summer, we were going to take the weighted average scores of each of the 10 movies and calculate the overall average of all 10 movies. And basically, whoever has the higher average across the 10 films would be deemed the winner. Earlier this summer, the 10 films that I drafted were Deadpool and Wolverine, Kinds of Kindness, Evil Does Not Exist, Hitman, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Sing Sing, Dee Dee, The Fall Guy, In a Violent Nature, and Twisters. And as the movies that you chose this year were Inside Out 2, Furiosa, A Mad Max Saga, A Quiet Place Day 1, The Bike Riders, The Watchers, Alien Romulus, Maxine, Long Legs, Beetlejuice, and Dandelion. It's crazy now that all of these movies have come out at this point. But now that the summer is over, now that the calculations have been done, the averages have been calculated, the scores are in, the winner of the second annual 2024 summer movie draft is, it's yours truly. I won this year. I pulled out the victory. I pulled out the victory once again, second year in a row, walked away with the win. But what's funny about this, in looking at last year's score, they are almost identical. In fact, my score last year was a 3.58 overall average, and this year it's a 3.56. And your score last year is the same exact score that you got this year, which is a 3.33. So once again, it's very close. In fact, it's so close that it almost resembles the scores that we had last year. But yeah, man, I managed to pull away with the victory. A couple of key movies in there. But overall, now that we've gotten all of these movies, and now that you're, sort of looking at your draft picks, you've been able to see most, if not all of them. How do you feel about just the output from these particular films this summer? What film do you regret choosing? Probably at this point, what was like your big hit that won that actually ended up being well received on Letterboxd? What do you want to say just overall about the summer movie draft?
I'm still pretty proud of my draft, man. Overall, I really feel like I had, I would say, a couple of surprises on the downside. Like, oh dang, that movie really wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. Like, I really was rooting for, I think, Bike Riders to be better and Maxine to be better. I think those are two I thought, I don't know, with just Bike Riders had all the pieces, and not that it's a bad movie, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it would do better than it did. And Maxine, man, I was Ty West. He was so close. He was so close to closing up this trilogy, I think, in a neater bow than he did. And Maxine, unfortunately, left me a little bit sad, man. And then the other thing, Watchers, that was already that was something I was going for the fences anyway. I was like, let me throw this on here. You never know. It's a Nepo babies. You never know. She might do good. But unfortunately, that movie just wasn't what I needed it to be. I do imagine if Watchers was a better movie, or I picked something else, it would have been super close. We would have been super close. That too, I'm sure, is bringing me down a ton. But overall, again, still proud of my picks, and it was close, man. It was close.
Yeah, Watchers not a great pick. 2.4 is the lowest score out of all 20 of these movies, which is, it's no shocker. We saw the film. It's not a good movie by any stretch. You would hope that maybe having Shyamalan's daughter attached to it, that maybe she would come out of the gate and have a really, really impressive first feature, but that was just not the case this time around. But on my side of picks, man, hit after hit, except notably In a Violent Nature, which my lowest score was a 2.8 with that film, which, it was okay. I think that sounds about right. But yeah, I just had really high hopes for a lot of the films that I picked. The one that did perform a little bit lower than expected was Kinds of Kindness. That's a 3.4 overall weighted score, which is actually really good.
It's pretty good.
And
Yeah.
that's the same as the Bike Riders. Like a lot of these movies have a 3.4 weighted average. But I did think that would get a little bit higher. But ultimately, I think what really put me over the top, and I suspected it, these small independent dramas, Sing Sing and Dee Dee, which I talked
Yep.
about last week. Again, two of my favorite films of the year. I like Sing Sing coming out and perhaps being the best movie of the year, having a 4.3 overall weighted score.
Yeah.
It's pretty tremendous. That's a
Yeah.
really tough thing to do on Letterboxd. That you almost have to get almost just all fives damn near to get
Yeah.
a score that high. But other solid performers like Twisters, having a 3.4, The Fall Guy pulling out a 3.5 overall weighted average, Deadpool and Wolverine, which could have been bad, pulling out a 3.6 overall weighted average. It was just enough to kind of put me over the edge there. But overall, man, I'm really happy. I think the thing that I would say is, and I intentionally strayed away from this. I did notice on your list
Mm-hmm.
5 horror movies, and horror really can go any direction at all. Like that, it's
Yeah.
just such a crapshoot. The one horror movie that I did draft was In a Violent Nature.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could have probably had a Long Legs in there, or even a Maxine, but it's just such a crap shot with horror. You really can't
Yeah.
depend on it because something that feels like it's going to be reliable, like a Maxine, turns out, damn, that didn't quite land the plane in the ways that I think we both thought it would. But always a
Mm-hmm.
really fun exercise to go back and do this. And Letterboxd is just such an interesting place because some of these movies you can just never really predict how people are going to feel about them. But we should also talk about the box office as well, because now that the summer is wrapped up, we do have final numbers for how the summer box office performed this particular year. And we also did some predictions for the box office, and we did an over under exercise. We'll get to that in a second, but I just want to read off some stats about the summer box office. Domestic revenue for this year's summer box office hit $3.67 billion overall. So it's down 10.3% from 2023, which accumulated a little bit over $4 billion last year, according to the final numbers issued by ComScore. This summer season currently accounts for 64% of all box office receipts in 2024. So far in 2024, at the domestic box office, there have been $5.6 billion earned. And so now the summer movie season accounts for 64% of that total number, which is pretty astounding. But it wasn't always this way. We had a whole conversation back in May about the possible doom and gloom of what the box office was going to look like. Revenue for the month of May was down 29% from the prior
Mm-hmm.
year. And a large part of that is because of the strikes. Deadpool and Wolverine was supposed to come out in May and kick off the summer movie season. That was not to be the case. It got punted to July. And so you had a movie like The Fall Guy opened up, which vastly underperformed. And also Furiosa did not do that well. And so a lot of people were very concerned about the box office. But June rolled around and everything changed. Bad Boys Ride or Die had a big, massive opening weekend for that film and did really successful, followed by Inside Out 2. Deadpool and Wolverine followed up behind that, and Despicable Me 4. And so it was all pretty good by the time you got to the June, July movie season, even though things are a little bit still down. But in terms of overall studios, Disney's empire, it basically is kind of returned to form. Its summer movies accounted for $1.5 billion of all domestic ticket sales, which puts its market share roughly 42%. So they are accounting for almost half of money earned at the summer movie box office. Universal also did pretty well. 3 of their films are in the top 10 summer domestic chart, followed by Paramount with 2. Want to read a quick quote here from an analyst, Daniel Loria of Box Office Pro. He said, quote, nearly every studio saw several summer releases overperform box office expectations across different ratings and genres throughout the rest of the summer. Disney takes the headline with Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Alien Romulus. Universal found success with Despicable Me 4 and Twisters. Paramount saw great returns from A Quiet Place Day 1 and recovered from an iffy opening weekend for If to see that title leg out to 100 million plus. Sony bookended the summer with hits like Bad Boys Ride or Die, which fell just short of $200 million domestically, and the late summer hit It Ends With Us, end quote. Before we get into our predictions and kind of look back at the numbers that we threw out, what do you think about this, man? They kind of had to show up in the second half, and really, I think a lot of these movies that probably didn't have a ton of expectation, like Alien Romulus, It Ends With Us being a big surprise, also being supported by the giant tentpole movies that did really well. What do you think about just the story that the summer kind of told, and how things were very concerning in May, but then by the time you get to June, July, and August, pretty much all is well at this point?
Yeah, man, what an interesting summer. It feels like I don't know that first half of the year. It's funny because I even feel like we talked about it January, February, March, April. That really first part of the year. If you would have asked us like, "Oh, how's the movies doing?" We would be like, "Eh." You know what I mean? Like, are they doing anything at all? But really, that summer, everything started to ramp up. It's almost like we started to care about blockbusters again this year. Not that we didn't care last year either, but I don't. It's something about this year that was like, oh no, it's time to turn up. Deadpool Wolverine is huge. You know what I'm saying? Movies like Alien Romulus, huge. Quiet Place, huge. Despicable Me, huge. Twister's huge. Like all these movies are just really big and people know what they are, and really well-known franchises are starting to come out the wazoo, man. And I think it was important for people to get to the movies to see them. So it makes sense. I don't think anything is like technically super surprising thinking about the movies and when they came out, decided to come out dealing with the summer. But I think it is interesting just how everything felt as we were watching week to week the movies that would come up that would come out. Because as much has happened this summer, it also went by really fast. Like we blinked and it's like, whoa, we're already in September. What happened to the summer? Like you said, I can't believe all the movies we were just talking about already happened and we've already seen them all. It's kind of crazy to imagine, but I think they booked well. I think a lot of for the most part, I think they booked well and they came out with the right timing during the summer, man. So yeah, again, not too much surprising, but it is an interesting story at the end of the day to see where everything ended up.
Oh, I'm very surprised just because last year, I mean, last year was very concerning because the movies
Yeah.
that felt reliable did not do what they were going to do, and that
Mm-hmm.
reflects in the choices that I made and also the over under predictions. Like I was very hesitant and kind of gun shy on a lot of these things, and did not expect them to perform as well as most of them did. Like a lot of these movies overperformed. There
Yeah.
wasn't really a movie that didn't hit. I think what most people kind of expected it to. We might have gotten
Mm-hmm.
a few million off here or there, but like most of these did better than I think people gave them credit for. Just because last year it was crazy and it was weird. It was just like some of these things that we thought were going to be reliable box office machines. It just was not the case, and maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
because the narrative got really just sort of eaten up by Barbenheimer, and that just took away all the attention. But this was a more diverse slate this summer, and there was less of a reliance on those huge, gigantic tent poles. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
these were sort of hit runs, sort of base runs, or they were sort of the B list tent poles that aren't the biggest in the world, but they could achieve considerable success if rolled out properly, rolled out at the right time, and given a really good marketing budget and campaign around them. And this does really, I think, reinforce the importance of release dates and how much time and attention and strategy is given
Mm-hmm.
to that idea. Like release dates by these studios are not just chosen willy-nilly. These are like heavily researched, heavily marketed, heavily thought out and planned out. Like what is the most optimal maximum amount of money that we can get on a particular release date. And so I think that this year we saw a lot of these movies bear fruit because they picked some really good release dates, and things didn't really have to compete with each other and overlap with each other. So a lot of these studios and a lot of the movies got a chance to just eat pretty well, and I think that that's
Yep.
a really great healthy box office. Even though it is slightly down, I think all of these studios are walking away like, yeah, we did okay. It's down 10%, but that's fine. Like we still did pretty good this year. Going into the predictions, because this is always fun. Like some of these things are like wildly
Ooh
off.
wee.
Sometimes we hit them, but it's fun. But basically, we both picked what we thought would be the top 5 earners at the worldwide box office this summer. And so my top 5 ranked from 5 is the Garfield movie, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Inside Out 2, Despicable Me 4, and Deadpool and Wolverine at number 1. Your top 5 ranked were Inside Out 2 at 5, Bad Boys Ride or Die at 4. Uh, what were you thinking? Picking a buddy cop rated R movie over a Pixar
Hey,
sequel to a beloved hit, like we,
Disney been going through it.
but
That was
Inside
my.
Out though,
I
for
know.
Bad Boys has never crossed worldwide 450 million at the box office. Even the
It's,
first Inside Out was a huge gigantic hit.
I don't know.
But you also had Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at number 3, Despicable Me 4 at number 2, and Deadpool and Wolverine at number 1. Now, the actual top 5, you got the movies themselves correct.
In
You
bad
got
order,
all
but
5 correct, but
right
just
five. Yeah.
out of order. I got 4 correct and threw in the Garfield movie, which did not crack the top 5, but it was in the top 10. But the actual top 5 of the summer was Inside Out 2, of course, grossing 1.6 billion at the global box office, becoming
Sheesh.
literally the highest grossing animated feature film of all time. Just ridiculous, tremendous
Wow.
success that nobody could have ever predicted.
Nope.
You just can't predict numbers of that stature, of that magnitude. Deadpool and Wolverine is at number 2 with $1.26 billion, the highest grossing rated R movie of all time. Despicable Me 4 bringing in $914 million worldwide, performing basically comparably to all of the other Despicable Me Minions movies. Bad Boys Ride or Die just barely crossing the $400 million threshold. And then at number 5, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes with $397 million worldwide. Now, in addition to that, we did an over-under exercise where we went through a lot of the big tentpole feature films, and we set a number, and we basically would predict whether or not that film would hit over that number at the box office or under that number. So we should just go one by one and talk about these and how they did. The Fall Guy, we set at $250 million worldwide. The final result for that movie is $180 million at the global box office. I think it cost about $150 million to make. We both correctly predicted the under on this for, I think, numerous reasons, but there didn't seem to be a ton of attention for that film when it came out. It wasn't like a lot of hype around the Fall Guy when it came out. It wasn't this huge movie, a very little known IP that pretty much nobody knew about, even with the stars in the front of it. What do you make of just like the final box office take for the Fall Guy, just in sort of retrospect at the top of the summer?
Yeah, I just remember this is one of the movies where we were like, "Whoa, are the movies okay?" And it's funny that we both still predicted under. I think, like you said, that it had decent marketing, but it was something about it I knew people were still confused about, or like wasn't interesting in seeing it. I was hoping, I think even then, that of course Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt would be like what carry this movie, and I would be wrong, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and a lot of people still did not see the Fall Guy. But overall, we both predicted under, and I think we thought right. We thought right.
Yeah, just it's one of those cases where this movie should have been more successful if it cost less money. It just shouldn't have
Hmm.
costed what it costed to make. I think studios really have to reassess how much they're spending on these films, and a film like The Fall Guy. I mean, Ryan Gosling popular, Emily Blunt popular, but that's just not enough these days, as we have talked about. And like I alluded to earlier, there was no like huge thing surrounding The Fall Guy to get people talking about it. There
Hmm.
wasn't like a TikTok viral sensation that happened. There wasn't a popcorn bucket. There was no like big moment with the Fall Guy, which is
Hmm.
unfortunate. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, this fourth sort of new reimagining Planet of the Apes movie in the 20th century Disney era, which is basically sort of a prequel reboot of the franchise. We set 500 million worldwide just based off of the
Hmm.
strength of the recent films. It didn't hit that. It hit 397 million worldwide, which I think is decent, but we did both predict the over on that incorrectly, so we got that wrong. But it did fall $103 million short of that. I think 20th Century and Disney probably would have wanted a little bit more. I think 397 is okay. It feels like it's just enough to keep going to make more of these movies, but I feel like if they could go back, they would actually want probably an additional 50 million, probably around somewhere 425, 450 worldwide, but it didn't quite go that far.
Yeah, we were definitely expecting more. Like you said, I think this is good enough to keep it going and to make more Planet of the Apes films. Especially, again, the way it ended, it was like, whoa, y'all plan to do more of these. But I know for them, it also underperformed for Fox or Disney. I guess now it definitely underperformed. But yeah, it's very interesting on what people decide to go watch. And maybe back then it was such a big gap between War and whatever this movie was. I think that could be part of it. I think if some of that momentum happened after War, maybe we would see more of those returns, but it just didn't happen. It was too far and in between. Good movie, but I also understand, I think, where it landed box office wise.
And War was the end of a trilogy. Like people had bought
Exactly.
into that story. If you watch the
Now
first
it's
one
the
in
end.
2011, now it's
Yeah.
the end. Like people are going to show up for that. It did drop off from
Hmm.
Dawn, but still, like to bring in almost 500 million was pretty healthy. But yeah, I think that they keep going with this franchise. Like it's still a
For
pretty
sure.
solid return to come back and do more. If the John Krasinski movie that starred Ryan Reynolds, we set it at 175 million worldwide. Didn't really have any comps. It was kind of hard to set that number, but it pulled in 190 million worldwide. I did predict the over on that. I thought it would do just a little bit over that 175. It kind of landed where I thought it would. You predicted the under for the 175, but
Hmm.
it legged out a little bit. It's not a terrific movie by any stretch. I thought it's a pretty basic story, pretty basic childhood story. But it legged out. I think enough people saw it. There was a big gap between like big animated movies. Kung Fu Panda come out in March, and people were really waiting for Inside Out 2, as we obviously saw, but this was kind of like fulfilling a specific niche in between that, and did just well enough, I think, compared to its budget.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It was just a weird movie for me. I think I predicted under just because I was like, what is this thing? What is if? But I think it was smart for you to go over. Like you said, it's a child movie. John Krasinski, all that. They had a decent amount of pieces. Like you said, it had a decent amount of long legs too, without having, I think, anything else kind of fitting into that family movie genre at the time. So very still a smart pick to go over. But I mean, it was close. It was like right on the line. It also could have been under very well. So it was a close one.
The next one, Furiosa Mad Max Saga, we set that at 350 million worldwide. The recent Fury Road movie that came out almost a decade ago made 380 million worldwide. You picked the over, I picked the under. I just knew that this was not gonna. I just knew it. There was no doubt in my bone that this was not gonna hit anywhere near 350. Again, as good as a movie as it is, as talented of a filmmaker George Miller is, that has nothing to do with it. This is all about just the notoriety or lack thereof of the property itself. At the end of the day, Furiosa is a prequel movie about a spinoff character with a recast actor that is less famous than the person who originally portrayed them almost a decade ago. Like, there's just too much working against it. Like, nobody was going to go see this in mass, you know, and it wasn't like the first one, or, you know, I should say the fourth one, Fury Road. It wasn't like that was a runaway success compared to his budget. 380 isn't the greatest compared to what that movie cost, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 million. And so it's unfortunate. This is definitely one of the best movies of the year, but I just knew it was not going to perform that well.
Yeah, it's it makes sense. I think I was shooting for the moon, but Mad Max is culty, like you said. The property itself is like, and then everything is working against it that you mentioned makes a ton of sense. I just wanted it. This was all selfishness. I was like, dang, I want this movie to do well, so I'm gonna go over. So that's all it was for me. But everything you said makes sense.
Next one is Garfield. We set it at 300 million worldwide. We both predicted the over incorrectly, and it ultimately ended up with 257 million worldwide. So not that far off, honestly. And this was a pretty big hit of the summer. Like, the movie didn't cost that much. I think it cost like $60 million. So to make 257 million worldwide, that's a huge hit. That's really, really successful. But it performed pretty much on par, kind of, with what the first one did in 2004. That movie made 208 million worldwide. But now this is officially the highest grossing live action Garfield movie of all time. And again, it kind of came out in a relatively slower period where movies like The Fall Guy and If and Furiosa were somewhat underperforming. But the Garfield movie, it stayed in theaters for a while. It did pretty well. It hit its demographic, and ultimately legged out and made a pretty impressive number at the end of it.
Yeah, it still did good. People love Garfield. I knew they were going to go see it. Yeah, I just didn't know to what degree. And this is a very hard one to predict to me. You just don't know how it's going to go. But like you said, we got close. It was pretty close. It did what it did. Still a good turnout for Garfield, I say.
Now the next one, this is where things really started to change for the narrative of the summer. Bad Boys Ride or Die. It had a really, really positive, strong opening weekend, and we set the over under at 400 million worldwide. You picked over, I picked under, and just barely, it made over 400 million. It landed at 403 million worldwide. You know, I feel like Will Smith probably bought about $4 million in movie tickets to get it over that 400 million mark. I think he made a last stretch there to just go ahead and say, like, yeah, it made 400 million. But you know, it did well. I think, you know, the same amount of people pretty much just showed up for the last one in 2020 kind of showed up for this one for the most part. It's a solid, okay movie for me. It's not great. Probably my least favorite Bad Boys movie, but a lot of people enjoyed it. A lot of people had a lot of fun with it, and it dispels all of the myths around the slap and what Will Smith did. Like, that is not a thing. Obviously, people don't give a fuck about that because they showed up for this movie, and Will Smith promoted the hell out of it. He was everywhere making sure that people knew about Bad Boys Ride or Die, and it paid off for him.
Yeah, he was even in people's movie theaters, just showing up like, "Hey guys, that was a good movie, wasn't it? Oh my God, it's Will Smith, crazy." But yeah, it was a good turnout, man. I just had faith that people love Will Smith, and to be honest, I think part of it, I know it sounds great, but it was like almost a retaliation to the slap. Like, everyone was like, "We don't care about this. We're going to go see Will Smith in the movies. Let's go do this thing." And of course, Martin Lawrence and that whole thing. I knew people were going to have fun with that film regardless. So I went over, man. Like you said, just barely, but very proud of what they did with Bad Boys Ride or Die when it comes to the box office. Again, not my favorite Bad Boys movie, but I had a good time with it. I did. So yeah, again, very proud of what they accomplished there.
How many more of these are they making? Like how because this is the quickest turnaround between a Bad Boys movie. The first
You're
one
right.
to the second one took 8 years. The second one to the third one took 17 years, but they made this within 4 years. How many more of these do you think that they can make? Also, just let's be real and honest about it. Considering Martin
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence, I mean, he says he's okay, but everything looks like it's probably not that to be the case. I don't know. I don't want to give him and make assumptions about what's going on with him. But I don't know how far Bad Boys can go beyond what they've achieved up until this point.
Yeah, me either. Like, part of me is starting to feel like, as much as I did enjoy, again, not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but as much as I did enjoy Bad Boys Ride or Die, even the things they're hinting at by the end of the movie, you're like, so y'all done spinning y'all wheels. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is almost kind of the end, right? Is what I'm hearing. I could imagine maybe one more to cap it off and leave it there. But I can't imagine anything past that. I could see one more, and I hope they end it there if they do decide to do that.
Yeah, they're kind of fast and furiousing it up at this point,
Mm-hmm.
extending the family. I would not be surprised if
At least they get hurt.
it's in future spinoffs. Do they get hurt? I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I guess more hurt than Dominic Toretto,
yeah.
who's just like a full blown superhero. But yeah, Will Martin Lawrence, spoiler alert, does have like a heart attack in the movie, so yeah, they are somewhat vulnerable. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how far Bad Boys goes if they make another movie. Inside Out 2 is the next one. Highest grossing movie of the year, one of the literal highest grossing movies of all time. It's in the top 10. The last Inside Out movie made $858 million worldwide in 2015. Already a huge success, but Pixar not been on the greatest stretch and run lately. And so we set it a little bit lower than 858, but not significantly. 775 million worldwide, which is still a massive, massive number. But this movie decided to go ahead and just double that and make $1.66 billion at the global box office. As I said earlier, the literal highest grossing animated movie of all time, unadjusted for inflation, but just a massive, resounding success that people saw over and over and over again. It's still in theaters right now, even though it's available on PVOD. It's about to be on physical 4K. It's about to be on Disney Plus, but it's still playing in theaters. This is just phenomenal success. We both did pick the over, but I didn't think $1.66 billion over. I'm thinking like, oh, maybe
Oof.
950 a bill if
Mm-hmm.
they're lucky. But this just went to totally different levels with just the overall success of the film.
Yeah, I could not have predicted it making this much money. Like, I'm still in like, what just happened? Like, I'm still trying to figure it out, because there has been moments where I know people who watch Pixar movies and animated movies as much as I do or you do, and they're like, I haven't even seen it yet. And I'm like, you ain't seen it yet? How's that possible? Like, 1.66 billion. I thought everybody's seen it by now. I'll be what have you seen? Have you seen? Like, I feel like everybody should have seen this movie. So I'm like, where is this money coming from? It kind of blows my mind how much this box office is going crazy. But man, this might be Disney's cooking this year, bro. They getting it back, and they still got Moana in the pocket. Man, crazy.
Yeah, everything that Bob Iger set in motion, it's working. It's proving his theory right. And we are seeing that they're going back to those beloved IPs, those beloved franchises that have been proven successes. And now they are really leaning into them. And this just showcases the power of Pixar. I mean, if you release a sequel to a beloved film and you release it far enough away from that first movie, time and time
Mm-hmm.
again, we kind of should have saw this coming. Like if you look at Finding Nemo
Yeah.
to Finding Dory, Toy Story 2 to Toy Story 3, Incredibles 1 to Incredibles 2, this always happens. The sequel always overperforms because you have new generations who've discovered those
Mm-hmm.
movies and have watched them over and over, and now they want to go see and experience this in theaters. And this is just another testament to that. So just incredible, incredible success to Pixar. Congrats to them. I'm really happy for them just because they needed something this significant just to pull them out of the rut that they've been in over the past few years. The next one is A Quiet Place Day One. We set the over under at 275 million worldwide. It came in just slightly under that at 261.5 million. We both had predicted the over, but we were incorrect there just because those first two movies did perform really, really well, especially the first one in 2018, 341 million worldwide for an original horror movie at that time. Just crazy. But this is a prequel movie. It is a spinoff. It doesn't have the stars of the original. It's something different and new. So I think it did decent. I mean, it kind of
Mm-hmm.
performs probably as good as you can expect if we're being honest about it. Like 261 is still respectable and still once again on par with where the franchise has been. We were just slightly off with the predictions there.
Yeah, yeah, just slightly off, like you said. I was really rooting for this film, and even I guess the star power Lupita Nyong'o and even Jimon Hounsou. But hey, it is what it is. I think it did what it needed to do. We were super close. But yeah, maybe in a different weekend, another, like, who knows? It could have slightly gotten over, but it just didn't, and that's okay too.
The movie should have been better. That's what it really
Yeah,
is. I think that's
yeah,
like
that's
it's
definitely should have been better.
it's the least good one of the three so far. So
Yeah.
I think that has a big
Mhm.
thing about it. But I mean, really, it's not continuing the story. I mean, you're gonna lose an audience if they don't see Emily
Mhm.
Blunt there. Like, we just got to be frank
Exactly.
about that. The next one, Despicable Me 4. Now, we set this at $975 million worldwide, and we were both wrong,
I
because
mean,
I would have told you that it would have walked away with $1 billion in its sleep, but it didn't, and it hasn't.
Yeah.
Now it's made $914 million, and I just want to reiterate this, just because we were wrong or incorrect. Like, these movies are pretty much all successful with a couple of just key exceptions. Like, 914 million is tremendous. It's amazing, and it is on par with where the franchise has been. But I thought it would have just made over that number in its sleep. I think what ultimately happened here is that Inside Out 2 took away a lot of that box office. Like, people who
Mhm.
probably would have shown up to see Despicable Me 4, they just went to see Inside Out 2 instead, or see it again, or see it for a third time. Like, families are probably going to pick one, and these movies only came out, I think, about 3 weeks apart, not that much time in
Mhm.
between. I think that if Inside Out 2 did not come out at the time that it came out, if it did not come out this summer, this would have been even more successful, because more people, more families, more kids would have just shown up to see it. But I do think that Inside Out 2 took away some of that box office heat that it would have had around this time. But still, 914, this has always been a franchise that's sort of a slow burn. It makes its money over a long period of time. You're not going to see
Mhm.
necessarily the biggest opening weekend box office. It's going to be huge, but it's going to really leg out and kind of dominate the box office, being the second, third, fourth spot for 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, all the way up until this point that we've talked about. And so, still a really big success for them, just slightly off with the numbers and the predictions.
Yeah, you said it. It is a big success, and it was more competitive this summer. I think sometimes in some of those previous summers where Despicable Me went crazy, it was like the movie to go see. You know what I'm saying? It was like, heck yeah, let's just go see Despicable Me 3. But even, bro, I watched The Rise of Gru recently. It's actually a banger. I was like, this movie is really good. And unfortunately, Despicable Me 3, which is crazy, it made more money, was a worse movie. But and so interesting, Despicable Me 4 is probably better than Despicable Me 3, and it made less money. It's so interesting how all of this works. But I can also imagine, kind of similar to how we were just talking about A Quiet Place, if Despicable Me 4 was a better movie, we might also be looking at some different numbers. You know what I'm saying? More people might have been like, wait, it did what? And usually people don't care. People like the Minions, I'm going to go see Minions. But I can imagine that also getting it over the finish line of 975 if it was like a banger of a movie. And unfortunately, it's just not that.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not attributing quality to any of these movies. I'm gonna be honest, because I don't. They're all registering the same exact thing for me personally. I don't I don't know if quality is really in the conversation for the Despicable Me franchise. Maybe it is, but this just feels like a baked in loyal audience regardless. Like, you're gonna make either 50 million more
Minions.
or 50 million less than what you typically make. Like, this is hitting the exact same numbers, and so I don't even think it's a quality thing, to be honest. The next one is Twisters. So we set the over under at 350 million worldwide. This was really hard to gauge and predict, because the first one came out in 1996, and that made $495 million worldwide at the global box office. I believe it was the second highest grossing movie of 1996, but that's a long time ago. Disaster movies are not really mainstays anymore at the box office. This has a fresh new cast, a lot of new people. Nobody is a star per se. And it made over what we said. It made 365 million worldwide. We both picked the under. So we were incorrect there, but I mean, it had a great summer. It did really well at the box office domestically, I would say. And what's interesting about this movie is that Universal handled the domestic distribution, and Warner Brothers handled the international distribution. Domestically, again, huge success. $264 million of that comes from just stateside. The other half of it, $101 million. I think Warner Brothers, I don't know what happened there. Feels like they might not have held up their end of the bargain to get in more international viewers, but this is also kind of like very much an American movie. I think one of the big things that happened here, a lot of Middle America showed up for this. A lot of the Midwest, these places that are affected by twisters and natural disasters, your Missouris, your Oklahomas, your Kansases, all these states. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think this showed up. These particular demographics showed up pretty big for this movie, and people saw it multiple times. I know I did. So it did pretty successful. It could have been more, I think, even than what it achieved here if the international numbers were healthier. But I still think that
Mm-hmm.
they have to look at this and say, like, okay, yeah, this is probably better than we maybe even gave it credit for to pull away with 365 compared to what its budget was, and compared to the fact that people hadn't seen a Twisters movie in 25 years.
Yeah, I'm honestly still proud of what it did. Like it went nuts, man. Also, shout out to 40X for whatever people they pulled in to
Oh,
go
they pulled in
hit up
everybody,
the.
and it fucking worked. I got it. I saw it in 40X, first 40X movie
Mhm.
I've ever seen. Amazing. Like legitimately an amazing
Yeah.
experience. They struck gold with it. I can't speak to 40X to any other movie. It might be
Hmm.
trash with Deadpool and Wolverine, who knows, but with
Right.
this movie, fucking perfect. And we have the biggest 40X screen in the world here in Times Square,
Hmm.
like 250 seats or something like that. I thought I was at Universal fucking Studios for 2 hours. Like it was incredible. And the fact that they leaned into that and it became like this viral TikTok sensation, it got people to stick around and go see it even weeks after it came out.
You can't fall asleep in there. I
Oh
tell you
no,
that.
no option.
There's no way.
And I was working on limited sleep, by the way. I had like maybe 5 or 6 hours. It wasn't a ton of sleep, and it was no falling asleep in that.
That's funny. But yeah, man, just proud of Twisters as a disaster movie being able to out predict us. I think that's great, man. I think that was actually hard to do, but yeah, very proud of Twisters.
Also does a ton for the stardom of Glenn Powell, who's on the ascendancy. This is
Hmm.
a really great showing for him. I mean, he's kind of untouchable at this point. He's making really great choices from a quality and a commercial standpoint. Everything he's touching, it's working. He's kind of following somewhat of the Tom Cruise playbook, who I
He's
know
a
is one
movie
of his
star, man.
mentors, and he's a movie star in the making. He's on his way.
He's a movie star.
I think he's on his way, and so we'll see. Like in the next few years, like if he makes a few more really good choices, I think he'll be in a really great position. The next one, Deadpool and Wolverine, we set the over under at 1.1 billion worldwide. It got just above that at 1.2 billion worldwide. You did predict correctly the over. I predict incorrectly the under. I think we both talked and said like it's going to either be slightly over or slightly under, but it's going to be right
Hmm.
around that area of 1.1, maybe 1.2, and that's exactly where it landed. Again, becoming the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, but this is a tremendous success for Marvel and for Disney. This is the first MCU movie to make this amount of money since Spider-Man No Way Home almost 3 years ago. And if you want to remove Sony out of the conversation, this is the first billion-dollar movie that they've had since Avengers Endgame 5 years ago. So this was a big phenomenon. Obviously, the return of Hugh Jackman did a lot. The surprise cameos and appearances did a lot. Just the
Hmm.
overall just idea of the multiverse and Deadpool being integrated into the MCU. There was just a lot to enjoy about this movie, and it worked. Everything that they put behind it worked, and it resulted in the second biggest successful movie of this year so far.
Man, so impressive as a rated R movie to be able to do that, man. But Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool, Wolverine, two big actors, two big characters, everything you said, man. Fox, them, everything coming back, the cameos, it just was like, whoa, no, this movie is doing it. So yeah, Deadpool, Wolverine. I was rooting for it. That's really all. I didn't know if it was gonna do over or under, but I was just rooting for it. And so yeah, happy to see that it definitely got over that 1.1 hump to 1.26. Man, so close, but it did what it needed to do.
The next one, Borderlands. We could not have been more wrong. We
Golly.
set the over under at 200 million worldwide. Don't know what I was thinking. I tried to bring in comps. You know, Five Nights at Freddy's was a huge success last year. Uncharted legged out and managed to be a huge success. These are two video game adaptations, but this resulted in being, I think, probably the biggest bomb of the year so far. We set it at 200 million worldwide. We both predicted the over, and we were both so very wrong. This movie has made $31 million at the box office. Just a massive failure on pretty much every level. It's a terrible film. It's not good. We reviewed it a couple of weeks ago. Neither one of us enjoyed it. So it's no surprise once you see the movie why people didn't show up for it. But you know, I thought that Borderlands had a really baked in audience that just would have supported it. But that was just not to be the case here. I think that there was just so much negativity around the film. There was a negative narrative about it, and just the troubles in production, and pretty much a bad release date too. Coming in August
Mm-hmm.
when it did, like people just went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine, or they went to go see It Ends with Us. Like they just chose other options over Borderlands, and that ultimately resulted in it being a massive box office bomb.
Yeah, and it's it doesn't help when like a week before the movie comes out, IGN is like, "Yeah, here's a 3." And you're like, "What? Where did that come from?" Especially I think marketing was it was I seen the trailer so many times. It's like Borderlands, 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 and then you're like, "Damn, that's what it gave it." So I can imagine that turned off a lot of people, but I know also a lot of people just didn't like how old the cast was, and anytime Kevin Hart's involved in anything, it's like, why is he? It's just a lot. It was a lot. Borderlands was a lot. I was rooting for it though, also because of, like you said, the comps. People showed up for Uncharted. People showed up for Five Nights at Freddy's. People have been showing up for video game movies. Sonic, crazy. You know what I'm saying right now. So I just thought, hell yeah, let's make a Borderlands movie. It did not turn out that way, and it's just so unfortunate to see. Man, that movie is so bad, so bad.
So bad indeed. And our final movie on the list, Alien Romulus. We just talked about it a couple of weeks ago. We set the over under at 250 million worldwide. I think we both were a little hesitant and picked the under. This movie is a big success. It is already over just within a few short weeks. It's sitting right now at 314 million worldwide. It's going to make even more. This is now becoming the second highest grossing Alien movie in the entire franchise, only behind Prometheus at this point. Huge success for 20th Century Studios and for Disney. Big, massive rated R movie coming out towards the tail end of the summer, bringing back fans of the franchise and also giving them something a little bit different with the new director coming in, Fede Alvarez, bringing his vision. And it helped that it was a good movie, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of people did enjoy this. And so it's overperforming, I think, pretty much by all accounts and doing really well. I'm glad to be very wrong about this. I'm very happy that it's doing the business that it's doing because I want to see more of this if they can continue to manage to maintain the quality for this type of film over the course of the franchise.
Yeah, I'm so happy this is the case, man. I knew, I felt it. I was like, this movie has it, man. Fede Alvarez is here. It looks good. The trailer's fantastic. We just got to see if people come out. And in Alien, it's a horror sci-fi film, very specific genre. So I didn't know how it was going to perform, but hey, man, people came out for it, and I think the marketing had to be good. There was enough space, I think, in between Alien Covenant and this movie too, for people to be like, what are they cooking up here? What are they doing? I think some people were interested to see what the differences may be, or if that story continued. I know people are asking me questions like, what's going on here? What is this? I didn't know the answers either. I was like, we got to go see it. That's the only way. We got to go see it. And I think that was true for a lot of people. Very proud of Alien Romulus and Fede Alvarez. Good job, man. I'm happy to be wrong about this one, 1,000%.
So out of the 13 movies that we did over under for, you got 4 correct and I got 4 correct. Terrible. Did awful.
We did so bad.
That's like a 30%. So we failed. But I think again for a lot of these, I'm happy that's the case because again I came into this whole exercise. I was very hesitant. I did not want to overshoot some of these predictions just because it was just a big state of uncertainty. It was hard to see some of these films, kind of and engage what they were going to do. Really, the only huge letdown from a financial standpoint is Borderlands. Everything else, again, as I said earlier, pretty much overperformed or performed about as well as you could expect for that particular film to perform in the context of where it exists within the franchise. And so, again, overall, a really solid box office season, only down 10%, compared to last year. But there are a couple of other ones I just want to talk about quickly before we move on and close out the summer movie season. Another huge success this year, Long Legs. My goodness, highest grossing horror movie up until Alien Romulus this summer, made over $100 million at the box office. I think the film probably cost like 10 million or something like that. I need to verify that exactly, but massive success. Neon did an incredible job with the marketing. We talked a little bit about it earlier when we reviewed it, but they held so much back. Obviously, the whole sort of novelty around Nicolas Cage's appearance and just the conversation around the movie, regardless of how you might feel about it, because I know it is very divisive. People showed up for it. People showed up and showed out for Long Legs, and it did really well for Neon. This has to be their highest grossing movie up until this point because they are still a relatively new distributor. And so I'm just really happy that an original horror film, not based on anything from a fresh director, can come out and just do the numbers that this one did.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Long Legs. I really like this movie. The budget's under 10 million. How about that? It wasn't even 10.
Jesus.
Insane. Didn't even cost 10 to make, man. But this movie did have, the marketing was insane. Like, they didn't tell you anything. And I think that brought in so many people. I just remember seeing this. Of course, the marketing was also misleading for a lot of us too. Like, that was one of our gripes with the film is like, whoa, this is not what y'all said was going to be at all. I did still end up liking it, but I still also not the movie that I thought it was going to be either. And I think a lot of people did buy into something else that they thought they were getting, but still overall very positive reviews and very good box office. I can't be mad at it, man. Good job, Long Legs.
Another big one I want to point out, I did talk about it briefly last week. It ends with us. Huge success. The 11th highest grossing movie so far of the year, which would place it, I think, in the top 10 of the summer. $314 million worldwide for a romantic drama comedy
Wow.
about domestic violence. It is based on a very popular book series. I know a lot of people have read that book, and so that certainly helped. And the star power of Blake Lively coming in here, and also, I mean, we briefly touched upon the controversy might have also helped. People might have just like saw that and
Mm-hmm.
said like, oh, let me go see what's happening here. I saw this whole thing on TikTok about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni are kind of beefing right now, and that just had a general interest around it. But this movie in particular really helped out with August, along with Alien Romulus, because things could have dropped off significantly after Deadpool and Wolverine into a dead
Yeah.
zone, especially with a movie like Borderlands being a massive failure. But
Mm-hmm.
with it ends with us, and then also Alien Romulus, they were able to carry August into pretty healthy territory to make sure that the summer movie season would be on pretty even ground, until we got to Labor Day last weekend. And so, yeah, another big success, huge hit for them, for Sony. Like I just pointed out last week, I just don't know if they'll do it again because the star and the director are just not on good terms. But financially,
Mm-hmm.
this would point to the studio saying like, of course we're going to do the second one. We're going to go back and make another one and make a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, I know I haven't seen it, but I was only interested because of the mess. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was like, oh, what's going on? Who's doing what with who? Oh, what is that movie about? Oh man, I think I want to go see this movie just because of again the messiness, the shade being thrown, all of the drama around the movie. Yeah, it made me interested to watch it. I know other people, like you said, who really went to go see it because of that reason as well. Of course, everything else, the fans, the people who want to see the book, the people who just want to go see a romance drama about domestic violence. But I know there's a lot of people out there who want to go see it because of the mess too, and I think that's okay.
Doesn't hurt at all. Well, folks, those are all of our thoughts, all of the recap that we have for the 2024 summer movie draft and the box office results. Hit us up and let us know what you think about any of our picks, any of our predictions, how wrong we were, how right we were, and let us know.